Hello, Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon. And then I post this video up to Patreon and Facebook and all that sort of good stuff. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. I'd like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/Chris Godinez. They're an online therapy company. They are international. They have 40,000 therapists working for them. And all you got to do is go to www.betterhelp.com/chrisgodinez.com, fill out some questions, and they will place you with a master's level or PhD level therapist in your area, or one that can do international. So thank you, betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. Okay, so current events. This one's a little scary. So I was going through CNN. Let's see if I can find it. I really need reading glasses. Oh my Lord. Where did it go? Okay. I was going through CNN, and apparently there is a group of politicians that are fighting to get no-fault divorce undone. So this may not sound like a big deal, but it is a big deal, especially to domestic violence survivors and those who are trying to separate and get rid of their abuser by divorce. So no-fault divorce started in 1969. Prior to no-fault divorce, you had to prove to the government that you needed to be divorced. Do you know how hard that is? And you had to show fault. You had to show that one person was abusive. Well, okay, how easy is it to show that your partner is abusive? Hello? Anybody? Bueller? You know, they... So no-fault divorce was seen as a godsend to men and women who were being abused, that wanted out of the relationship, out of the marriage, because they could just go to the court and say irreconcilable differences, don't want to be married anymore. And then the court gives you a cooling off period. So it's not like you just walk in and, oh, we're divorced and that's it. In the state of Arizona, you've got I think it's a 60-day cooling off period before it starts rocking and rolling, the divorce proceedings. Prior to that, prior to 1969, you had to show probable cause. You had to prove that your spouse was abusive. How good are narcissists and psychopaths and dark triads at hiding their abuse? How good are they at manipulating? How good are they at turning on the crocodile tears? So the big thing is that what I have seen in the divorce cases I have been involved with, one of two things happens with an abuser. So either the abuser is just like, yes, it's my idea, I want done, I want out, and the divorce goes through. And of course, they don't want to give alimony or child support or anything else, and they'll fight you on that. But the divorce goes through because they want out. They've got someone waiting in the wings and they want to go. Or opposite, they don't want the divorce. They want you as their personal punching bag, and they will throw as many roadblocks as they possibly can to the divorce going forward. And honestly, the politicians that are wanting this to go forward, if you read the article on CNN, so just go to CNN, look it up, you can find it. The politicians that are wanting this to go forward were both divorced by their spouses that wanted out. And they were both pissed off as hell that their spouses got away from them. And they want the government to make them behave. So what does that sound like? What do narcissists do? Let's think this through logically. The narcissist views the judge as the stand-in for mom or dad. Okay? So they're going to go complain to mom or dad, the judge, and demand that judge make that spouse stay with them, because you're dealing with somebody who's operating on the level of a 2-year-old. Okay? So they think in their crazy little heads that mom or dad stand-in, being the judge, is going to force the spouse to do what they want. Now, the danger is, what do we know about a lot of judges in this country? A lot of them are narcissists themselves, and they will side with the abuser. And it happens. I have seen it. So this is dangerous, guys. Getting rid of no-fault divorce is going to trap domestic violence people that are suffering domestic violence, in a domestic violence situation where they are going to continue to be abused. This is not okay. Again, contact state, local representatives. You got to let them know, we are not going backwards. What the actual? 1969 is when it first came in. No fault divorces. You want to know who put it through? Ronald Reagan, who was himself divorced. Interesting. And he was a Republican. So, yeah. And he was, yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is that it's interesting to me that these politicians now that are trying to get rid of no fault divorces had spouses that desperately wanted to get away from them and did, and they're bitter that they did. And it even talks about that in the article. So please, 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 if you want to make the world a good place for your kids, contact your state and local representatives, contact federal, contact everybody. You got to be like, no, this is not okay. Because what this is going to do, this is going to create a lot more people dying from domestic violence situations. It is. Statistically, it's like the politicians were like, oh, but the divorce rate went up. Well, temporarily it did, but the divorce rate is pretty much settled now, and it has nothing to do with the with the no fault divorce. It's that, people are educating themselves, not getting involved in relationships that are, or not staying in relationships that are abusive and not putting up with it, So they're wanting us to go backwards, and it is a danger, not just for women. I mean, this is what I don't think people understand. There are abusive, narcissistic, dark triad females as well that are only too happy to keep that spouse trapped in that relationship so they can be their personal punching bag. Okay, everybody needs to be concerned about this. And again, separation of church and state. It's none of the state's business whether a person stays married or not. If somebody is like, this is not a good situation, I need to be out, then you need to trust that adult to make that decision and honor it. Do you see where I'm going with that? Plus the fact, like I said, there's a built-in cool-off period of 60 days, at least in the state of Arizona. So if you change your mind, or if, whatever, therapy happens, but never go to therapy with a narcissist. Don't do it. It's dangerous. So, I mean, there's built-in fail safes. It's kind of like, okay, well, let's have a cooling off period to make sure this is what you really want. So this is really intrusive on the government's part if they're trying to get this done. And the fact that the people that are doing this are embittered from their divorce speaks volumes to me. So write your state and local representatives, write your federal ones. No fault divorce needs to stand. It needs to stand. It does. Because prior to 1969, look at the number of domestic violence cases. Look at the number of, and they're still huge. Abusers are crazy. I can't say that enough. They are violent. They are sadistic. They are control freaks. Remember the dark triad: narcissistic, control freak, and I'm sorry, my brain has just left my body. Narcissistic, psychopath. Hello. So, they're crazy and they want control. It's all about power and control, or it's about forcing the partner to do what they want. Daddy, make them do what I want. Mommy, make them do what I want. That's what this is about. So you really don't stay silent on this, and not just for your sake, but for generations to come. It's like, for me, it's like my childbearing years are over for a long time, but I've got great nephews and nieces. I don't want them trapped in a horrific, abusive marriage. I don't want them to have to go through proving that the person that they're married to needs to not be married to them. I don't want to have them go through that, and neither should you. So write your representatives. All right. So there is that. Okay. So on to other topics. Okay. I will be in Washington, D.C. on July 20th. I will be in York, Pennsylvania on August 5th. I will be in Philadelphia on August 10th. And then my last date will be Nashville, Tennessee on August 17th. So if you're interested in going to any of the meet and greets, which I encourage you to do so because they're a lot of fun, I would definitely say go to chrisgodinez.com, get your tickets there, go to appearances, and you'll have everything there that you need to know. So anyway, and the meet and greets, basically, in case you don't know what they are, 2 hours. You got me for 2 hours. We go, we hang out, we have coffee, and we talk. You ask whatever questions you have, and I'll do my best to answer them. So it's fun. I enjoy it. I think people are enjoying it. So anyway, there it is. Okay, let's dive into today's topic. Thank you, Lucky. Yes, thank you. I love you too. Okay, so today's topic is being comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I think this is important because I don't think I've prepared you guys enough for when you're healing. Okay. And I want to make sure you're prepared. So when you're healing, weird stuff is going to happen. It just is. And one of the weird things that happens is we get out of the abusive relationship and we're thinking initially, we're like, oh, this is great. This is fabulous. I'm free. I can do this. I can do that. And that's all lovely and wonderful. But then all of a sudden, these weird, uncomfortable thoughts start popping up. For example, one of the most common things I see happen is when people start working on their self-esteem and their self-worth. They have these thoughts that they were not aware of running in the background, that negative internal dialogue. Oh, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve to be happy. You don't deserve to be, fulfilled. You don't deserve, all of this negative stuff. Or how dare you like yourself? How dare you say nice things about you? How dare you da 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 da. So this is why it is so incredibly important to work on all of this stuff. Getting with a good trauma therapist, guys. Why? The internal dialogue comes from how we were spoken to as children. I cannot stress that enough. So how we were spoken to is what pops up. In a healthy relationship, it's a cheerleader. It's like, go you, I love you, good job, keep going. In a toxic relationship, in a toxic family, one where there was a lot of criticism and a lot of shame and guilt and, control and manipulation, it's going to be shameful. It's going to be guilty. It's going to be controlling. It's going to be manipulating. It's going to be not good enough. It's going to be, how dare you? It's going to be a lot of weird stuff that you're not prepared for. So when you get out of that relationship, working on your self-esteem literally is the key. It is the basis of good mental health. It really is. So when you start working on your self-esteem, one of the first thoughts that I have had clients tell me that pops up for them is, oh my God, I can't say anything nice about myself. If I say something nice about myself, I'm being a braggart, or I'm being arrogant, or I'm being narcissistic, which, okay, let's break this down. Break it down. So narcissists, especially narcissistic parents, cannot stand it when somebody likes themselves. They can't. That makes them so mad. So when a child is proud of themselves, what does a narcissist do? Tears them down, takes that away from them, takes the rug out from underneath them. How dare you? Oh, you're so arrogant. Oh, you're so narcissistic. They're talking about themselves. I'm sorry. You guns. Okay. So that then becomes our internal dialogue, so that when we do start saying good things about ourselves, or we start doing the positive affirmations, or we start doing the mirror work. Hi, good to see you. Have a great day. I give you permission to like yourself. It feels weird. It feels really weird, because this thing pops up and goes, oh, well, you're not being humble. So it's really important to tune into this very uncomfortable inner dialogue. I know. It's like the last thing you want to do, because you've been dealing with abuse, either from the family of origin, excuse me, or from the romantic partner or the boss or whatever. And I know it's the last thing you want to do, but it's really important to figure out what messages that internal critic is giving you and why. Okay. So how do you do that? That's one of the big things. Somebody was like, well, but I don't know how. Whoa, lightning sort of went out there for a minute. Hold on. So here's the thing. It's going to take mindfulness. Why is mindfulness so difficult for most of us? Myself included. I've been there and done that. So mindfulness is difficult for a lot of people because if the inner child is running the show, okay, kids don't like things that are painful. They don't. Kids don't like things that are uncomfortable. They don't. So it's not unusual if your inner child is running the show that when faced with hearing that inner dialogue for the first time, your inner child comes screaming to the forefront and is like, no, 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 we're not, nope, we're not going to do that. Nope, we're not going to listen to that. Nope, we're not, nope, 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 nope. Here's the thing. The books I want you to get, and the reason why I want you to get these books. Okay, the Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi. You got to work on your self-esteem. No two ways about it. CPTSD From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. We got to work on handing the abuse back to the abuser. Facing Codependency by Pia Melody, or The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker. Working on that feeling responsible for them kind of stuff. And I want you to get a mindfulness workbook. There's a whole bunch of them out there. There's tons of mindfulness books. I think it's a really good idea to get a mindfulness workbook and stay in the present moment. So the reason you need to work on the inner child is that inner child needs to be comforted, because to them, hearing the negative stuff is just like it happening here now, here now, here now. Okay. Remember, the amygdala cannot tell the difference between past, present, future. It's all the same. So this is a threat to the amygdala. Okay. When we hear that internal critic, we want to shut it down and be like, oh, no, 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 I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen. Okay. Because it feels like it's happening all over again. It feels like we're being criticized all over again. It does. And the shame, oh my God, the shame comes piling in and all of this stuff. And it's a cascading series of childhood traumas that suddenly are like full bore in our face. This is uncomfortable. I don't like it. I'm just going to shove it down and ignore it. The problem with shoving it down and ignoring it is then you are running on an unconscious level, which means your inner child, anywhere from age 2 on up, could be running the show and making decisions. Not a good idea. Plus the fact, working on that internal dialogue, forcing that internal dialogue to come to the forefront so that you can truly, truly hear it and truly call it out and truly replace it. Okay. So what I see a lot of people doing is they've got the calling it out down well. It's like, oh, it says something like, well, you're not good enough. Thank you for your input. Shut the bleep up. Why? Because I say so. But people stop at shut the bleep up. They don't go to the why because I say so. There's a whole other section past that you gots to do in order to put this down permanently. So if you just tell the internal dialogue, shut up, oh, it'll shut up for a second or two, but then it's going to come roaring back bigger and badder. Okay. Because it thinks it's the boss. It's a bully. It's essentially your abuser. Think of it that way. How we were spoken to as children is that internal dialogue. It's either going to be our internal cheerleader if it was healthy, or that internal critic if it was unhealthy. So to resist something, you don't want to resist it. That's often what we do is we go, oh, no, 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 ew, icky thought. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. Well, guess what? What are you thinking about the whole time? You're thinking about that icky thought. So you might as well deal with it. Not just think about it, but be like, okay, icky thought, we're going to have a come to Jesus moment. Come here. I hear you. I see you. Shut the bleep up. Why? Because I am the boss, not you, internal dialogue, not you, abuser, now living in my head. How dare you? Get out. I'm not putting up with either one of you. No. And in fact, I am good enough. I am smart enough. Whatever it just said, you do the polar opposite of what it just said. So a lot of times it does the not good enough, you're arrogant, da 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 da. Okay, shut the bleep up. Why? Because I say so. I am the boss, not you. I am good enough. It is okay for me to praise myself. Now, people freak out because they're like, I don't want to be like my abuser. You're not. You're not. Abusers tend not to get help. And if they do get help, it's because they're being forced to by the court system, or they're being forced to because their spouse is threatening a divorce. But then as soon as the therapist starts calling them out on their stuff, they're going to tell the therapist they're incompetent, don't know what they're talking about, blah, 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 and leave. They usually stick around about 3 sessions. That's about it. So if you're working on yourself and you've got these workbooks and you're listening to these videos, you're probably not a problem. So okay, sorry, something popped up on my screen and I'm like, what is that? So all right, you're not the narcissist. Okay, let's do the difference between self-esteem, okay, and narcissistic supply. Okay, self-esteem, real self-esteem, is just that tiny little voice inside your head that goes, hey, I like you, good job, keep going. Oops, you screwed up. Okay, make amends, clean it up. Okay, good, you did that. Okay, forgive yourself, move on, and I still like you. So even though things went south, I still like you. That's self-esteem. A narcissist, on the other hand, screams to the world, tell me how great I am. Tell me how great I'm great. I'm the greatest thing ever. Tell me how great I am. Because they're fishing. They're looking for compliments all the time. That's what a narcissist does. That's how they get narcissistic supply. Okay. It's not just tiny little voice going, hey, I love you. Good job. Keep going. Oops, you screwed up. Okay, make amends. Okay, good, you did. You made amends. Okay, forgive yourself. Move on. And I love you. Okay, that's real self-esteem. Narcissistic supply is where they want somebody else to tell them. They're fishing for compliments. They're constantly talking about how great they are to everybody. You're not talking about how great you are to everybody. You're talking about how great you are to you. And that's important. Why? Because when we're doing the mirror work, okay, we are really honestly speaking to those inner children. I know. You're also speaking to your adult you, but you're also speaking to that inner child. So when we were kids and we were raised by toxic, dysfunctional, narcissistic, oh my God, family, we did not get that mirroring of how to love ourselves, how to speak to ourselves, because they did not speak to us kindly or with respect or gently or with compassion or understanding. So when you're doing the mirror work, okay, that is where you speak to you with kindness and respect and compassion and gentle, as if you were speaking to your own child or as if you were speaking to you as a little one. So kids don't know how the world works. And sometimes our inner children get stuck in those ages and still don't know how the world works and tries to make it work from the perspective of a little one. And that doesn't work. And so you kind of got to talk to them. Hey, little one, I love you. Guess what? You don't need to be running the show here. Adult me needs to be running the show. Let me be your protector. You get to go play. You get to go have fun. You get to go discover who you are. I am going to protect us and I am going to take care of things. And you know what? I appreciate you trying to run the show. I get it. You're trying to keep us safe. That's not going to help. I need to be the one running the show. And I promise you, I will protect you. So you speak to yourself with kindness. You speak to yourself with gentleness. You work on whatever fear that child has. So one of the fears, like I said, is uncomfortable. The uncomfortable feelings. The, oh my gosh, I'm hearing the internal dialogue for the first time and it's mean. It is. It's a, oh, Lord have mercy. Some of the things that toxic parents say to their children, you would never say to anybody. And how dare they? And I think a lot of kids are afraid, and when I say kids, I mean adult kids, are afraid to get angry at the abuser for what they said and how they said it. And it's okay. I'm giving you permission. It's okay to be pissed off how you were spoken to. It's okay. So uncomfortable feelings. Ugh, I want to avoid it. Well, no, you don't. You want to investigate it. Get curious. What is this uncomfortable feeling? Why am I feeling uncomfortable? Ooh, I want to avoid this. What is this? Oh, it's the inner dialogue. Oh, I'm telling myself that I'm not being humble enough by being nice to myself. So remember, this kind of all folds in together. The different types of abusers or the different forms of abuse that abusers use. One of the forms that they use is communal narcissist abuse, where they use religion to make that child behave or to make that child do what they want. So one of the things that they do is they tell the child that they're evil, that they're bad, that they're going to hell, and that they're, how dare they say something nice about themselves. That goes to the core of a child. It really truly does, because all a child wants to be is loved. They do. Little kids are just little bundles of light until some a-hole adult smothers that light. Seriously. So when you're telling a child, or when an abuser is telling a child that they're evil and they're bad, that little kid is like, what? What? And then they start turning themselves into pretzels to try to please the abuser so that they're not considered evil or bad anymore. And the abuser will do things like, if the child does something for themselves, well, you didn't do that for me. How come you get to have X, Y, and Z, whatever that is? Okay. So, one example I can give you of that is my grandmother was a consummate narcissist, and I worked all through high school. I held jobs. I either worked for my dad's office, which was miserable, or I did other jobs, catering when I was in college and things like that. And anytime I bought anything nice for myself with my own money, she would come unhinged. How dare you? How dare you didn't buy me something? Why would I? So that's how abusers do it, is they try to, inflict that guilt. Thankfully, I was older when she moved into our house, and I realized what her game was. But do you see where I'm going with that? So it's really important to start working on the whys of the hows. It's like, okay, you're uncomfortable. Why and how? What did you hear? What did you say to yourself? What was the last thought you could remember before you checked out and you felt uncomfortable and icky and all of that sort of stuff? So that's really what is important, is staying with the uncomfortable and making sure that you're analyzing what's going on. Where did this come from? Oh, I'm feeling bad for loving myself because my, abuser told me I was arrogant and this, that, and the other thing if I said nice things about myself. Okay, that's not true. That's not true. Self-esteem is saying nice things about yourself. Does that make sense? You've got to say nice things about yourself. And another thing that I think happens is when we are raised by abusers, okay, they absolutely hobble us. They absolutely do not prepare us for adulthood in any way, shape, or form, especially emotionally. But not only emotionally, they don't prepare us for life in general, because they've isolated their children a lot of times, and that's intentional. They've refused to allow them to socialize, and that's intentional. So coming out of all of that, there's going to be a lot of uncomfortableness, because now that we're out of the abusive relationship, whether it's a family of origin or whether it's a romantic relationship, now we're realizing, oh, we're playing catch up. We're having to catch up to our peers. We're having to catch up to know how to socialize. Ooh, that's uncomfortable. Force yourself. I hate to say it, but force yourself. Force yourself to go socialize. Because here's the deal. The only people that are going to be judgmental, I was about to say a four-lettered word, but I'm not going to say it, that are going to be judgmental little twits to us are abusers. And if anyone treats you with disrespect, they've just shown you who they are. Avoid them. Avoid, 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 avoid. Okay? You don't have to be around them. But I do invite you and encourage you to embrace the uncomfortable and stick with it and work through it, which is why it is so important to get with a good trauma therapist. You're going to have a lot of stuff coming up. You're going to be sitting down with your therapist going, oh my God, I had to go to a party It was so uncomfortable. Here's what I was thinking. Here's what I was feeling. Here's what was going through my head. Oh, you know, and that's normal. That is normal, guys. And I think it's really important to not allow the inner child to run the show, because if the inner child is running the show, they're going to run from the discomfort. They are. I don't know a kid alive that likes being uncomfortable. Seriously, they don't. They just don't. But abusers make them uncomfortable and make them stay in the discomfort, and they punish them, and and so we start associating that with being uncomfortable, when in reality, if we're uncomfortable, that is the perfect opportunity to explore why. Where did this come from? Who taught me this? What thoughts am I thinking? What is happening? Why am I feeling uncomfortable? Where am I feeling it in my body? Remember, The Body Keeps Score, Bessel van der Kolk, fabulous book. So it's really important to not run from the discomfort. Now, I'm not saying, be miserable. No. But when it becomes very obvious and you're like, ooh, this is asking for my attention. I'm uncomfortable and this is asking for my attention. I need to put some thought into this and put some focus into this and put some mindfulness into this. It's the perfect opportunity to deconstruct it, comfort your inner child, work on the self-esteem, hand back the abuse to the abuser via writing a letter, writing and burning. It's okay to get mad at them, guys. It's okay. You can write an angry letter. It can be 27 pages of screw you if you need to. It's okay. Write it and burn it. Don't send it. So that's why getting comfortable with the uncomfortable is part of the healing process. If we run from the discomfort all the time, we're never going to get to the root of where all of this came from. And that's really what it is. You really want to figure out, why is it so uncomfortable to say that you like yourself? Who gave you a wrong message? Who told you? Who lied to you and said it wasn't okay? And what was their goal? What was their agenda? Stopping a child from loving themselves, that's evil, in my opinion. That's evil. So what was their agenda? What did they hope to accomplish by doing that? And usually it's manipulation and it's control. Okay, I have no glasses on and I cannot see what time it is. How am I doing? 3:32. Oh, 3:32. Okay. So let me just wrap this up with a beautiful little bow here. Narcissistic parents hobble us. They make us go unconscious. They do, because they don't want us to be conscious. They don't want us to call out the abuse. They don't want us to see what's really going on. Okay. So we engage in things like, daydreaming, just avoiding reality, daydreaming, avoid. So that's where the avoidance comes in. When we become adults, we're ill-equipped to deal with things. We're playing catch up with our peers. We find ourselves feeling uncomfortable in a lot of situations. We have a lot of uncomfortable thoughts. We have a lot of mistaken thoughts. We have a lot of mistaken beliefs. And one of those huge mistaken thoughts and mistaken beliefs is that it's not okay to say nice things about yourself. It absolutely is okay to say nice things about yourself. That is self-esteem. Self-esteem does not come from other people. Self-esteem comes from in here. And the way it comes from in here is mirror work, talking to yourself. And not only that, when the inner critic pops up and says awful, horrible, terrible things, you put the smack down on it. Thank you for your input. Shut the bleep up. Why? Because I say so. I am the boss. You are not the boss. I am the boss. I am good enough. I am not going to play what if games or whatever it said. You do the polar opposite. So you don't want to just hang out with shut the bleep up. You want to be like, I am the boss. You don't get to speak to me that way. I am good enough. Now you can go pound sand. Do you see where I'm going with that? Write and burn letters to your abusers. When you get into an uncomfortable situation or an uncomfortable thought, write it out. Where did you hear this thought before? Who told you this? Is it true? 9 times out of 10, it's not. So allow the uncomfortable situation or the uncomfortable feelings to be like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a siren. It's kind of like, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Ooh, uncomfortable. Ooh, this is something I should probably look at and work through. So get with a good trauma therapist. Get these books. The Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi. Okay, work on the self-esteem. which no abuser wants us to do. The Disease to Please, Harriet Breaker, or Facing Codependency by Pia Melody. CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. The Inner Child Workbook by Catherine Taylor, or The Inner Child Workbook by Lucia Cappuccioni. So that is your homework assignment. And mirror work, constantly speaking to yourself with kindness. Do not let the abuser take residence in your head. Do not allow them to continue to abuse you through that inner critic. Put the smack down on it and replace it with the positive. Absolutely. All right, let's go to the questions, which I don't think I actually pulled up. Can you read them to me? Yeah, because I can't see because I don't have my reading glasses. Because stop making fun of me, Godinez. I know where you live. Okay.
The dogs think it's funny.
The dogs think it's funny. I'm sure they do.
The children of narcissists wish the parent would just go away and never come back.
Yes. Oh, sweet baby Jesus. If you read my book, which is available on Amazon, I know, shameless plug. It's called What's Wrong with Your Dad. I used to pretend that my parents were kidnapped by aliens and that my real parents were off in space somewhere because these two bozos didn't know how to be humans. Do you see where I'm going with that? Yes, they absolutely have fantasies of the parents just going away and never coming back. You betcha. So yeah, that is not unusual. That's a normal thought. So please don't make yourself wrong for that. That is 100% normal because they're abusive. They're not normal. Abusive parents are not normal. They don't know how to behave. They don't know how to be human beings, which is why I pretended they were aliens, because that's the only way I could explain why they were acting so bizarrely. So yeah. Next question.
But the other part for that was when I was little, just my narcissistic mom would just disappear and never missed her when she wasn't there.
Yeah, never missing the parent when they're not there. I never missed my dad when he left. I missed my mom when she left, but never missed my dad. And it's funny because it's like, my mom and I really did a lot of repair on our relationship later on. With my dad, no, not so much. And, I don't miss him. I don't. He was such a destructive force in my life that no, I don't miss him. And I didn't miss him when he went away when I was a kid. Like they'd go on trips and I'd miss mom. I'd be like, gee, I hope mom comes back. Don't care about dad. But yeah, no, that is 100% normal. Yeah, 100%. Last question.
How do you align the heart and the mind when you know that you are not the things that the narcissist made you out to be, but inside you still don't believe yourself, even though you know it?
Okay. So how do you align the heart and the mind when you know you're not the things that the narcissist made you out to be, but you still don't believe it? So it's like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? We don't believe it because we've heard it so often, number one. And we don't trust that we're really as good or smart or whatever as we think we are, or as we know we are, kind of thing. Imposter syndrome. There we go. That's what my brain was trying to find. Imposter syndrome. So here's the thing. Abusers give us a funhouse glass. So funhouse glasses are wavy and they're distorted, and they give us a distorted view of ourselves. Okay. A healthy parent gives us an accurate view of ourselves. A healthy parent loves their child, cannot wait to see them, enjoys them, wants to be around them, even as adults, so misses them when they're not there. An unhealthy parent blames the kid for all of their stuff. You're not good enough. All of their stuff gets shoved onto that kid, and we start believing it because, they're our parent, right? And we're always taught, oh, respect the adults. I have learned that a lot of adults are a bunch of douchebags. So, it's like, so basically it's imposter syndrome. So the cure for imposter syndrome is working on the self-esteem. It is going to feel fake as hell. It is. In the beginning, it is. Trust me, I've been there. I've done that. So you work with your trauma therapist, you work on the mindfulness, you put back the stuff onto the abuser, and you do like logic and critical thinking. It's kind of like, well, my abuser said that I was X, Y, and Z. And here's the truth, I'm not. And here's the evidence. And yeah, and it's okay for me to know, not just believe, know that I am a good person worthy of happiness. It's okay. So it's a process, guys. And constantly calling out that imposter syndrome is really important because they want us to doubt ourselves. They want us to doubt ourselves like nobody's business. And they want to be the only source of any information. So you've got to be able to go, nope, they lied. They're wrong. That version of who I am exists only in their mind. Let me say that again. That version of who you are exists only in the abuser's mind. It is not reality. They needed a scapegoat. They needed somebody they could pour all their vitriol, all their nastiness, all their evilness into. And they always pick the innocent kids. Why? Because they're evil. So work on the imposter syndrome, get with a good trauma therapist, do the self-esteem workbook by Glenn Schiraldi, really confront that imposter syndrome stuff. You know, there is going to be a part of us that is going to be like, no, that can't be true. No, I can't be that good. No, da, da, da. And you just got to be like, okay, where did I learn that from? Oh, this came from my abuser. Guess what, mother clucker? It's okay for me to like myself. It's okay for me to know I'm a good person. I no longer need to look into your funhouse mirror, abuser. Do you see where I'm going with that? You're going to have to do a lot of confrontation and a lot of taking your power back. It's really what it is. You take your power back. You have the right to know who you are. You have the right to like yourself. You have the right to know that you're not an imposter, that you do know what you're doing, that you are a good person, and you are worthwhile and worthy and deserving of happiness. Boy, those are all the things they didn't want us to have. 100%. I said that to a client one day, and literally I could watch her go, oh my gosh, because she was terrified. Because the little kid was like, oh my gosh, no, that's never been safe. Well, it's safe. It is. That's all of the abuse now is now just the inner dialogue. You can control that. You can make that go away. You can. You 100% can. Now, is it going to rear its ugly head when you're stressed out? Yes. Is it going to say stupid things every once in a while? Yes, absolutely. But for the majority of the time, it's not going to say that stuff if you work on it and if you recognize your own power. Thank you for your input. Shut the bleep up. Why? Because I say so. I am the boss. I am good enough. And I am not letting you take my power away. Do you see where I'm going with that? And you're going to have to do it a lot. It's not a one and done. It is not a one and done. It's going to be a journey. It is, but it's doable. So go to and go be awesome and go be successful.
I got another one.
Okay, one more question.
Can whole families be narcissists? I feel like I'm the only sane one.
Yes. Can whole families be narcissists? I feel like I'm the only sane one. Yes, absolutely. Whole families can be narcissists. So remember, in dysfunctional families, there's roles that people play. And it depends. One size does not fit all. So in a dysfunctional family, there's usually the narcissist and a minor narcissist, or the narcissist and a malignant borderline. Then there's the golden child, okay, that is the mini-me. There's the ignored middle child, usually, not always, but usually. There's a comedian, and there's a scapegoat. And those roles are interchangeable, guys. It's not fixed in stone. It can be interchangeable. So in my family, the golden child would switch based on who did what dad wanted that week. So it was never a set thing. I mean, there was a general kind of like, okay, older sister was always the golden child, but even she got dethroned when she told him no. So yeah, and the family very quickly can do the whole narcissistic thing in an effort to try to stay safe from the abuser. And usually it's the kid who sees the pink elephant taking a crap in the corner of the living room is the one that's the scapegoat. And also the one that's the sanest, because they see it. They see the dysfunction. So yeah, that can happen. Absolutely. You can have massively dysfunctional families, and it gets worse from there because then you get into the whole incest thing and all of that stuff. So yeah. Anything else? Any other questions?
Did you want another one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Guys, we're not walking yet. Hang on. The dogs are like, what?
Okay. How do you start being soft again? vulnerable, empathetic, cry, etc. It's either rage or nothing.
Ooh, okay. So rage is the easiest emotion to access. Okay, it is. It is part of the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So generally, when somebody is threatened, okay, one of the things, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn pops up. And if you're raging, nobody in their sane mind is going to come anywhere near you. So it's a defense mechanism. It's like, arm's length, stay away kind of thing. So I too felt that as well. People used to make fun of me and say, "This is Chris happy. This is Chris sad. This is Chris being vulnerable." So it's a defense mechanism. It's a way to keep people at arm's length. So the way to practice being vulnerable is being gentle with you. It's okay. Give yourself permission. So a lot of times what I hear from survivors of abuse is the thing that they hate more than anything else is crying. Well, yeah, because we're vulnerable when we're crying. We're not pushing people away. We're kind of like turning in on ourselves and crying and being vulnerable and sad and the softer emotions. Abusers hate the softer emotions. They hate them. They consider empathy and vulnerability a weakness, which in reality, empathy and vulnerability is a superpower. It really is. So, any idiot can be a brute force. It doesn't take a lot of brains to destroy. It takes a lot of brains to be diplomatic and to be kind. It does. So, they hate anything that's what they perceive to be weak. And so they punish us when we are crying. I can't tell you the number of times my dad would hit me and then get mad at me for crying and then hit me again and be like, "Oh, I'll give you something to cry about." Well, you already did, you son of a, don't get me started. Do you see where I'm going with that? So we learned that that's dangerous, being vulnerable. But the reality of it is, in the rest of the world, being vulnerable is a good thing. It is. So you train yourself, first of all, by getting with a trauma therapist, working on the self-esteem, working on the inner child, comforting the inner child, allowing the inner child to feel the feelings. That's something that a lot of people keep trying to avoid. You can't avoid it, guys. The feelings are going to be there. You might as well work with them, So the other thing that I would do too is I would allow myself to watch movies that I knew were going to make me cry. And I would just allow myself to cry. And, and then the other half of that is I do not allow people around me that try to stop me when I'm crying. If somebody is like, "Oh, don't cry, I get pissed. I'm like, I will cry if I damn well feel like it. You watch me. So you don't want to be around people that are going to perpetuate that emotions are bad. Emotions are good. It's what we do with them that make them good or bad or helpful or hurtful. So you work on that. And the empathy part of it is have empathy for you, that little one, that little kid that got hit for no reason, that little kid that got screamed at for no reason, that little kid who got lied to about who they are, that was forced to play catch up now as an adult. Gentle with you. Gentle with your inner children. They need love. They need compassion. They need kindness. And they need to know that they're not bad and wrong. They need to know that the abuser is the problem, not them. So you work with yourself first. Get with a good trauma therapist. That's how you work on your own empathy. And out of that, you'll be very empathetic with everybody. So there that is. Anything else?
We'll use them for me.
Okay. All right, my loves. Go have a great week. I am not really clear what I'm going to be talking about next week.
It's a surprise.
It's a surprise. So if you guys have any topic that you're really, 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 really interested in hearing, just go ahead and leave it in the comments, or you can reach out to me on Facebook. We Need to Talk with Chris Godinez on Facebook, and let me know if there's any topics that you are interested in hearing about. So that is it. All right. Gentle with you, my loves. It's okay for you to love yourselves. It's okay for you to like yourselves. It's okay for you to confront that abuser. It's okay to be uncomfortable and work through it. Don't run from it. Let it inform you. Be curious. What is this about? All right, my loves, go be good. And I will, where is the cursor? There it is. All right. And I will talk to you later. Bye. Okay. We'll go for